Hey guys, my attack is Christmas is cancelled and I wanted to say thanks for the great support I got from my 1 wall 6 targets video. I noticed a lack of this type of content for aim training and I decided to give a shot at it even though I've never really made a video like this before, so all the kind words mean a lot. And to give back, I decided I should put out this video quickly because it's what a lot of people requested. This is my Sparky Aim Grandmaster benchmark for Ground Plaza No UFO. I get a 925.4, which is rank 46 on the leaderboards, and just like last time, I will be showing you everything you need to get a score like this. Tracking scenarios really test 3 key areas. 1 is the smoothness of your aim, 2 is your reactivity, which is your ability to not predict, and 3 is the speed and accuracy of the flick back onto your target. So how does one train in these 3 areas? I gave this recommendation in my 1 wall 6 targets video, but smoothness training is always going to be relevant. If you didn't see the video, it's the smoothest routine recommended by Aimer7. You raise your sensitivity by 10 to 20%, you lower your FOV to 80, and play a tracking scenario. I recommended Thin Gauntlet before, but other scenarios you can try out are Thin Aiming Long Invincible, Censoring 2, Bounce 180 Tracking, and Popcorn Goated Tracking Invincible. The biggest pain in the ass when it comes to tracking scenarios, however, is when the bot changes direction. For whatever reason, it's really hard to not predict. The bot is doing a long strafe right, and at any moment it could go left and you keep jerking your mouse waiting for it to come. Or the bot keeps rapidly changing direction and you just have no clue how you're supposed to deal with it. The thing you want to improve when it comes to this is reactivity, and I'll give you a beginner way to start improving your reactivity. When you play in free play, you have the option to change your timescale. Basically means you play the scenario in slow-mo. Being in slow-mo means that you have more time to react to the change of direction, and it also helps when it comes to practicing the flick back onto the target, which is something I mentioned as being important earlier. I would recommend changing the timescale to 0.7 and seeing if you can do well. Set a percent benchmark for yourself, set a timer for 1 minute, and play on this lower timescale until you can reach that benchmark. When you reach it, go up by 0.1 until you can get back to 1.0. Once you get back to 1.0, set a higher benchmark, then go back to 0.7, rinse repeat. As an aside, I've recommended this before to newer players, and the reaction I get a lot is, why would I practice something easier? Something I see a lot is new players immediately jumping into harder scenarios, thinking it's better practice. Think about it, if a scenario is too hard that you think you're not getting good enough practice, going into something harder is just going to be worse practice. The way I see it, going to a harder version of a scenario, for example what is pat target switch small to pat target switch, is for when you want to go from good to great in the main scenario, not to get good at the main scenario. To get good at the main scenario, you have to start at step 1 and work your way up, and the timescale practice is one of those ways to do that. Given that this is a Ground Plaza No UFO video, which means that there's 8 different bots, how do you do the timescale practice I'm talking about with that? If you type Ground Plaza Invincible into the search bar, you'll find invincible versions of every bot. You should know which bot is which, but if you don't, bots 1 through 4 are slow and bots 5 through 8 are fast. The first 2 bots in each group of 4 are long strafes, the last 2 are short strafes, and the odd bots are close and the even bots are far. Chances are bots 3, 4, 7, 8 are the ones you have the most trouble with, so you can individually practice each bot until you reach a percent you want. As for how to stop predicting, all I can really say is that you have to notice whenever you do predict and try to go back to reading the bot's movement. All of your mental focus has to be on reacting if this is your weakest point. When the bot is going left, you have to believe with all your heart that it will continue to go left for the rest of the challenge run. Until it goes right, then you have to have the same belief then. If you ever get antsy about when it's going to change direction, you've lost it and you need to go back to just reacting. Now, let's say you're actually pretty good at reactivity and just want an end-all be-all way to get it great. Instead of practicing thin versions of Ground Plaza, there are thin scenarios you can practice. So there must be something similar for reactivity, right? Personally, I actually got Grandmaster with just 1 tracking scenario, close fast strafes easy invincible. I really sucked at air nuns and Ground Plaza until I started doing a new routine that instantly became popular on Sparky Aim amongst all the high level players. After 5 days of this routine, I got GM in both air and Ground Plaza pretty easily. What I'm talking about is SDK's reactivity routine. I'll link it in the description. Just like how practicing small dots get you better at practicing big dots, this routine features 3 really hard scenarios when it comes to reactivity, and when you go back to regular scenarios, it'll be like you're playing on timescale. The routine features some smoother scenarios so that your aim doesn't get too shaky, but the main scenarios here are air UFO 10 times hard, close fast strafes invincible, and mid-range fast strafes invincible. If you're newer to Kovacs and jumped straight into the Sparky routines, you've probably never played regular air. Besides having annoying skybots, there's also a 9th bot, a UFO. What you're seeing is one. It's fast, it moves erratically, and teleports around. This scenario features a harder version of the air UFO, and there's 10 of them. If that's not hard enough, there's also a small version of this scenario too. It takes a Grandmaster level tracker over 5 minutes to just do one challenge run, so I wouldn't do it unless you're at least pretty good at reactivity or you're ready to spend 10 minutes doing UFOs. The reason I think this scenario is insane practice for reactivity is both because it's constantly making you react, but it's also hard to predict. You predict because you notice a pattern. If a bot that's only moving horizontally is doing short strafes, then throws in a long one to the left, your mouse is going to go to the right because you were in the short strafing pattern. But this bot is so random that there's not really much to predict. You still have to focus on reacting, but it's easier to do, I've noticed. So it puts you in that react mindset easier, which means that it's more optimal react practice, while simultaneously being an insane fucking bot that you need to react to all the time. Literally the first time I did this routine, I noticed great improvement on my 4th run compared to my 1st run. After a couple days of this routine, I was confident in my ability to get GM scores in air and ground plaza, just due to the scenario when I couldn't even reach the Masters benchmark before. This routine also features 20 minutes of close fast strafes invincible and 10 minutes of mid-range fast strafes invincible. While the first scenario is amazing for reactivity, and I think the scenarios are also good for it, the main thing is that these scenarios punish you much greater for predicting since it's easier to do so. These are only horizontal strafing bots, so you're going to notice patterns and try to predict, but you have to keep the mindset you had in the air UFO scenario and fight the urge to predict. I managed to get a top 15 score in close fast strafes invincible while doing this routine. I'm telling you, it works. And that's all I have for you in this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you got this far, I would appreciate a like and a sub, and also if you would come join me on my Twitch stream where I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on AIM.